Okay, so welcome to today's webinar, everyone. My name is Alex Biale. I'm one of the two founders here at Domestique. We are a fractional go-to-market operations agency. For those of you that are unfamiliar with us, I'll just kind of do a quick little shtick about how we think about go-to-market operations, because I think it's going to tee up a lot of the conversation here. So we think about go-to-market operations as across the entire customer journey. So it's inclusive of marketing operations, sales operations, customer success operations, in alignment with product and finance. And we think about it as these 5 work streams: your strategy, process, technology, data, and enablement. So it's pretty comprehensive, and it's usually not just one role. These webinars tend to be pretty tactical, pretty hands-on. Like we don't want to just give you, quote unquote, thought leadership content. We want to give you real insights from career operators. And this is a very meaningful conversation to me because Nick Tippmann here, our sort of man of the hour, was Domestique's very first client. When Domestique got started, we didn't have a logo. I don't know that we had a name yet either. Yeah, we didn't have a name yet. We delivered this big audit, and it was on black and white presentation, and you were the first one that took a bet on us. And yeah, we are forever in your debt. And now, you've sort of turned, from a career operator to investor with a specific focus on AI companies. And this is the 3rd webinar in this sort of AI series that we're doing. So if you haven't seen the previous 2, I highly recommend you take a look. But the first one was really all around how to think about adopting AI from a RevOps strategy perspective. We had Karen Singh from Sapphire Ventures. Awesome conversation. The dude is a wizard. The second conversation was with the former VP of Marketing Ops at Slack, Salesforce, Marketo, Adobe, all about AI technology and how to think about AI use cases from a technologist perspective. And now we're getting a very cool perspective, which is both an investor perspective and an operator perspective. So I'm really excited about this. To kind of help kick us off, Nick, would you mind doing a quick intro? I know it's helpful when people actually hear from you.
Yeah, for sure. And thanks for teeing that up, Alex. And we'll always have fond memories of us working together. And it was cool. I don't know that I knew at the time we were the first client, and yeah. I definitely remember the audit well. I know you and I may have done a project together before without the name Domestique, but I think you had put it together by the time we worked together there. But no, really excited to be here today. Thanks again for having me, and thanks for everyone for attending here. Looking forward to a great conversation. Quick background on myself, Nick Tippmann. I'm the founder and GP at a early stage venture fund called TipTop Ventures. We're a pre-seed and seed stage vertical software and vertical AI specific fund, leveraging my background as an operator, and have built an LP collective of other vertical software founders, execs, and VCs who have had success as well. As Alex mentioned, prior to this life and moving over to the dark side, if you will, over the last couple of years as a career operator and founder. Most recent and relevant to prior to starting TipTop was part of the founding team and head of marketing, CMO at a vertical software company called Greenlight Guru, a quality and regulatory compliance platform for the med tech industry. We help med device companies get approved by the FDA, EU, Health Canada, and keep their devices compliant once they got to market. I had an amazing run there. Always led marketing, always led RevOps as well. Got to dabble my hands into product strategy. Many hats over the 9 years or almost 9 years that I was there. And Alex and Domestique were a big part of the journey in the second half there, as we really formalized and operationalized our revenue ops across sales, marketing, CS, and eventually product and finance, which they were a big part in helping align those initiatives as well.
Yeah, awesome, man. Awesome. Yeah, you are one of the few investors that can actually walk the walk and talk the talk when you get in there. So yeah, lots of respect. Cool. All right. Well, let's kind of get in. So we are seeing, in one of our pre-conversations that we were having, we were chatting about some of the trends that we're seeing, currently, both from, and I want to kind of have this part of the conversation in two different ways. One is AI adoption by non-AI native companies, and then the other is AI native companies and trends that we're seeing there. So, you're investing in these companies, and we are seeing increase in inbound to Domestique, the agency, from AI native companies, which has been a really obviously positive, but also kind of shocking turn of events this year that we've seen. And so I'd love to kind of, from your perspective, like, what are you seeing specifically more on the go-to-market side of the house? Like, what are you seeing, on the go-to-market teams in these AI native companies that you're investing in right now and advising for?
Yeah, there's a lot going on. Things are moving fast. There's crazy growth rates out there. The adoption of these AI tools are unlike anything that we've ever seen across previous cycles in technology. And that's causing a lot of chaos in a lot of ways in a lot of companies. But the best companies have found ways to bring order to that chaos. And I really believe that the best companies are sticking with the foundations and the foundations that you talked about across maybe you call them 5 work streams now, as work streams when we work together, and they're understanding and treating go-to-market more like a product. There's not a line. I think the lines between product and go-to-market motions are blurring a little bit. Like every touch point from outbound, your demo, to onboarding, really to feel like a product, a part of your product as well. They're fast, they're intelligent. Your touch points are aligned with how the buyer wants to work, and that's inherently building trust instantly. And the rep isn't showing up as much and looking to sell the product as they are as much looking to validate what the buyers are looking for. But yeah, the best companies are sticking with the basics, and they're getting the foundations in early. You mentioned those work streams, the process tools, data, enablement, strategy. I really think today more than ever, data isn't a nice to have. It is the operating system. The fastest growing companies aren't analyzing data after the fact. They've built the processes that allow them to run real-time instrumentation, weekly go-to-market pulse checks, understanding intra-stage conversion rates, clear definitions of what's working now, not what worked last quarter, last year. We saw this back in the GGJs as well, and rolled out Demand Council with you guys at Domestique, which was our weekly ritual where RevOps, sales, product, CS, marketing would all come together and align on the pipeline movement, while there was actually still time to do something about it. And I talked to many of our portcos as well about the importance of monitoring these real-time signals and having the rituals and the systems and the processes set up to support that.
Man, really thoughtful answer. I appreciate that. And you just hit on so many things that I want to jump into. We are also seeing for sure this sort of doubling down on doing the right things right. The way that you talked about that, right? Like data is no longer this nice to have. Data is the fuel for your go-to-market engine. And if it's not, you are behind. Because so we talk about this thing that we call the RevOps life cycle. We kind of group our companies into, you know, are you in a build, grow, or scale stage? And you know which stage you're in by the questions that you're able to answer about your company. So if you're in a build stage, you're probably able to answer questions like, what happened a month ago? Like you said, why did our marketing qualified leads drop a month ago? If you're able to answer that, you're probably in a build phase. If you're in a growth stage, you're probably able to answer things, you know, like, okay, well, why did that happen? And go that layer deeper, get into campaign data, get into real specific nuance data. But if you're in the scale stage, you should be able to start answering what is going to happen, when is it going to happen, and how can I make it happen? And what we're seeing is an acceleration of, well, we're seeing two different trends. One is an acceleration from build to scale because of all the data that's available and the companies that are just jumping in headfirst and leaning into that and that have the foundations in place, whether they're using you know, a data lake or not, they're able to start leveraging AI to get more proactive with their analysis. Conversely, one of the bigger trends we're seeing is companies want to be AI curious, want to go adopt new tools, and maybe they have bought a bunch of tools and they're like, oh, these AI tools suck, it's not working. Why isn't AI working? It's like, well, one, maybe you bought a vibe coding tool and it just sucks. But two, you know, AI has to be referencing something. It has to be referencing some data that is trustworthy to be able to go take actions. And if you don't have the data, look to your technology, look to your process, look to your strategy, right? And so again, it's this like, you know, folks wanting to run before they crawl, right? And so the irony of this like AI adoption that we're seeing is like one of the first questions. The two questions we asked to kind of like do the gotcha is like, if I asked 3 people at your company, how do you define a marketing qualified lead? Would I get 3 different answers or the same one? And then 2, how many active customers do you have? It's shocking how few companies can answer those questions. And it's like, man, if you don't have that, how are you expecting to, you know, go do this big, you know, AI implementation? And so again, I really resonate with your point. It's like, you've got to be doing the basics well. How are you approaching advising your companies on that topic? Because I imagine you're getting a lot of pushback on them wanting to do the basics well, right? These AI native companies tend to be brilliant product folks that maybe lack some of the sort of having the adult in the room on the revenue side of the house. Like, how are you navigating that? Because I imagine that's not a message that they want to hear.
Yeah, it doesn't feel very founder mode to come in and say, do the basics and get your house in order and get the foundation set. But if you want to scale fast and have these astronomical growth rates, 1 to 10 million, 10 to 100 in a year, 2 years, like, you better build a system around that allows you to keep the car on the track, or you're going to end up in the wall. And so it really does all start with the data. It's funny you bring up MQL definitions. One of the points that I had here is like, it starts with the data, and it starts with simple things like building your data dictionary. Like, you need to get alignment on the definitions of your MQLs, SQLs, ICP fit, non-ICP fit, how you're scoring the opportunities. And this goes back to what hasn't changed, whether it's AI analyzing the data or humans analyzing the data. But if you're putting garbage in, you're going to get garbage out. I was talking to my wife about this before. Who's also a go-to-market leader, chief sales officer.
She's an assassin. She's a total assassin. If you are sandbagging, she is a killer. Yeah.
She is amazing. She's the best sales leader, revenue leader that I know. And she's at a very fast growing SaaS enabled marketplace company that's doing extremely well right now. And I was asking her about this and how she runs her team and how they're doing it. And the way she described it was everyone wants orchestration, but most people haven't earned it. Orchestration really only works when the data layer is clean. And if your inputs are inconsistent, messy, no alignment on the definitions, then your outputs are really just going to compound the chaos as you continue to scale. And what she's seeing in the market and what they're doing at her company, Hummingbirds, is really treating CRM and go-to-market data like a product. It's curated, it's maintained, it's trusted, and it's all live and real time. And so you're, again, back to, it doesn't matter if this was 5 years ago and you were putting this data together and you're prepping for your demand council weekly meeting. Like if you don't have alignment on the data, the sources, where things are coming, ownership, it's going to be garbage out. Same thing today, whether or not you're running that through an AI orchestration layer or not, just goes back to like the fundamental. And that's what we're advising our founders to think of it, to your point. A lot of them are brilliant product minds and very customer focused and customer obsessed. And to bring that thinking from a product mentality, but bring it to the go-to-market organization and think about your revenue engine and the operating system the same way that you think about building your product.
And those two insights I think are, well, three. One, focusing on the foundation, huge. You're not going to get any disagreement here from us. Two, wanting orchestration but needing to earn it. I haven't heard it phrased like that, and I think that's exactly right. We're constantly getting pulled in and getting asked, "Hey, can you start building this big, cool, complicated thing?" It's like, man, I would love to. Here are the prerequisites to being able to do that well, so that we don't just light time and money on fire. Have you done even 80% of this? And the answer is always no. And so the big advice that we're giving to our companies and anybody willing to listen to this nonsense is like, get the basics right. And it doesn't have to be overly complicated, but build a scaffolding that you can build around, right? It's like, this analogy we use is like, look, if you're going to go build your big new cool house, you're in your 50s and 60s, you're settling down, you're doing the big rep. You're not just going to focus on, the coolest room first. You're going to build the scaffolding. You're going to build the infrastructure first and then build around it, right? And we're just seeing folks skip that step. And the irony is what we're seeing from other investors that we're talking to is because they're skipping that step, all of the company signals from the investor perspective is like, yeah, green, green, green. We're hitting all these product milestones. We're hitting all these other KPIs, all these other metrics. OpEx maybe, on the go-to-market side is increasing because we're buying a bunch of tech, but then it's like a quarter or two or three later, and you're just not hitting the revenue goals or the customer lifetime value goals or these different unit economic goals you have. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait, we got to go start over. And so it's causing this massive slowdown. So to kind of ask, the question from a different side now, like, what are some companies getting right from your perspective? I think a lot of the reason why a bunch of folks joined today is like, they have a unique opportunity here to hear directly from an investor in this space. Like, what are some of these companies that are getting this right, getting right? I mean, obviously we talked about laying the foundations. Like, what else from your perspective are they getting right?
Yeah, I think they're getting right their product market fit. The adoption of these products is truly incredible, which really helps grease the wheels of everything else and allows you to have some of these champagne problems in some sense of scaling too fast and having to deal with the chaos. And so I think there is a huge focus on product these days, but then back to how does product lead into go to market, and to not think of those as two separate things, but more as one org and one alignment between product and go to market. And I think the best companies are realizing that. I think another thing that the best companies are doing are that have gotten their data layer in place, and they have earned the right to get to the orchestration layer. They're operating with basically full AI copilot layers. Then once the data is in place, basically every function more or less has shadow agents behind the scenes working, whether that's helping with discovery, helping with follow-up, helping with handoffs, helping with enablement, helping with forecasting. Vetted in their workflows, and it's happening in real time. And there isn't this manual data input and manual CRM gymnastics that most companies are typically having to go through, or would have had to go through. They're having agents in the background run and handle all of this, and they're making their reps, everybody from marketing, sales, CS, way more efficient and effective, and allowing them to do more with less when they give them the proper tools to be successful. I think another thing that we're seeing with some of the high performing teams is that enablement is no longer a quarterly initiative. It's happening in real time. Back to these shadow agents, like high performing teams have agents, and I've heard use cases of this that are essentially querying every call transcript for signals and pulling signals out in real time, whether that's objections, moments of confusion, gaps in the pitch. And it's not something they're looking at the end of the quarter or the end of the month, but it's actually being piped into Slack in real time for training on the job. Like you're not waiting for the QBR to learn. You're getting real-time coaching feedback from bots in Slack, in where you're doing your work, in the call and after the call. And then bots are working for you to do all your prep, to help write the follow-up email, to put together customized presentations and proposals. And it's impressive. Like that there's a lot that you can do once you do foundations in place.
That's, I think that last statement, right? Like you really summarized it well. There's so much you can do if you have that initial scaffolding, that initial infrastructure. Another version of that we're seeing is that real-time conversational intelligence. And then I like the enablement route. It's like, we're seeing a lot of, take that and then map that in an automated way to your stage advancement criteria, which lines up with whatever the value-based messaging framework, MEDDIC, MEDPIC, SPICE, BIT, BANT, whatever it is. And so one, you're giving back time to sellers, right? Which Karen Singh talked about a few weeks ago with us, right? Like you're giving time back to sellers, but it is objectively better insights that you're getting because it's coming directly from the call. And what we're seeing is much more strict adherence to stage advancement criteria, which, to go back to your point earlier about forecast, is improving forecasting accuracy. But like, if you get the basics right, you can start to use this for some really slick use cases. One thing that you said, really, two things I want to get into. One is all those things that you just shared about, different AI use cases, right? It's like helping with discovery calls, helping with enablement, improving forecasting. These are still like, I don't want to say the basics, but it's like, you still have to run these plays. Like, I think a lot of the current go-to-market leadership that we're seeing out there is, they're all saying, oh, well, AI is just going to handle all this, and I don't have to do any of these things. It was like, you still have to run discovery. You still have to run a forecasting. A point that you've made to me is, it's just how we're executing that is evolving. And I think that's the big leverage here is you're still doing your forecasting, you're still doing your stage advancement criteria, you're still doing your lead scoring, you're still doing all these things. How we do it is evolving and changing. And if you're giving time back to sellers, what are they doing with that additional time? If it was Reese here, he would say they're selling more, and that's probably true. But I think it's just finding ways to gain extra leverage points there, right? You're still running these same plays. How we do it is evolving. Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully we'll sell more. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
And you are seeing this with back to the best companies. You're asking like, what are the best I mean, you're seeing these seed strapped companies, these 50-person, 100 million plus, these lean AI companies that have figured this out and have been able to do way more with way less. And you're seeing crazy CAC payback periods that just weren't thought of before because of how efficient and effective these revenue systems and these orchestration layers have enabled these companies to build. But to your point, Alex, like at the end of the day, your core foundations haven't changed. Maybe the execution has, but the job is still more or less the same. Like build value, get it in the right people's hands, and make sure they're getting recurring value from what you're selling, and mapping all the systems, processes, tools, strategy, everything that goes into that. It's just now we have a lot more tools at our fingertips to be able to do it more efficiently and effectively. And so, yeah, that's kind of a core message, but I'll flip it back to you and ask, because it has been a couple of years since I've been in the operator seat, and I know a ton has changed over that, but what else are you guys seeing that's changed that the best companies are doing from an execution standpoint?
Yeah, good question. So we talk about AI adoption from the AI use cases perspective, right? One of the biggest mistakes we're seeing companies make is they're buying a bunch of new tools because they're slick and they're very cool, but they don't solve a cohesive problem. They're point solutions to a specific thing, and then by the end of the year, you have 10 new tools that don't speak to each other. And it's obviously that causes a million problems. So what we're seeing is, this is going to sound, well, I don't know how to sound. Prioritization is like the number one thing that I think a lot of these companies are getting right. It's like, what are the problems we want to solve? Because there are hundreds of problems you can solve now with this AI automation, right? And so it's really around, and usually this is a RevOps role, is somebody in the room saying, is that worth building? Is that worth solving? I'm happy to go devote a sprint. I really like your perspective that go-to-market teams are operating like product teams. We've thought that way about RevOps for a long time here. RevOps needs to operate as, which we talked about back at Greenlight. It's like, we got to operate in sprints. It's like, look, there's only so many story points here, right? How many do you want me to devote to automating this thing over here? And I think a lot of companies are doing a lot of things, but they're just checking the box. They're not solving the business outcome. And so it's like, what are the business outcome you're trying to solve for? How can we improve that? And it's usually a less sexy example, or maybe it takes longer to get there. But some cool examples that we're seeing are delivering on the ABM promise, right? So ABM, I grew up in marketing ops, and it was always, oh yeah, we can do ABM one-to-one, where we're just talking to this person at this company with this message, and one to few, one to many. One-to-one, I mean, unless you're like making wine, and selling wine there, like I don't know that promise was ever fully delivered. Even when I was on the receiving end of, okay, I got a direct mail postcard, it never felt like it landed. We're starting to see, again, in more of our enterprise clients, this move towards ABM at scale. So it's having a solid data model, having a solid data foundation, usually in some kind of a data lake. They've got all the different go-to-market tools. They're working together. They've all got issues, but the core is solid, and they're leaning on generative content that is specific to the account, their life cycle stage, the person, and their persona, and then any specifics around behavior, intent, fit that they're seeing with their scoring model. And all of a sudden it's like, hey, we have this, maybe it's a web page, or it's a piece of content, or it's an email, or it's some digital piece of content that is being generatively curated for literally this account, this persona at this account in this life cycle stage. And it's very much in the early stages there. Like, it still requires that human overlay to review it. That's still what, but we're seeing more adoption of plays like that, which is, if it can work, is pretty cool. I think agentic AI is going to have to start to play a serious role in that. So we're not quite there yet, but we're starting to see that, which is pretty slick. Yeah.
Yeah, it is pretty exciting to finally be able to deliver on the promise of ABM. And when you think about it, though, like the use case of hyper personalization and taking into account everything that you mentioned there, the stage segments, signals, life cycle stage, like that's a perfect use case for AI, right? And it's not easy to pull off, but again, if you go back to your comment of treating RevOps like a product, treating go-to-market like a product, you know what your vision is and what you're aiming for. Hyper personalized, dang near one-to-one ABM, not even at the account level, but down to the persona level. Well, cool. All right. Well, let's reverse engineer and work backwards. What needs to be true for that to be our future? And then to your point around prioritization, let's prioritize the biggest blocks. Let's figure out where we're going to get the biggest bang for our buck with the least amount of time and highest probability that it's going to be successful, and resource it properly and then start executing, right?
Yeah. Exactly. It's all very cool, but I guess, and this leads me to something where we might disagree on this. I feel like you and I rarely disagree, but when we do, it's usually pretty meaningful. So one of the things that I'm going to put on my RevOps hat, you put on your investor hat. One of the things that we are pushing for is the ability as an in-house operator to experiment, right? Because you still have your day job, you still have your goals you have to hit, you still have all this stuff that you have to do, and you're constantly being told, hey, adopt AI. It's like, I'm trying here, but there's only so much time in the day. So something that we are advocating for is carving out X% of your, again, we're talking about RevOps. Within RevOps, again, going back to treating RevOps like a product function, there's only so many story points within a sprint. Carve out a percentage of those story points that's just about experimentation and being curious. It might not go anywhere. That one sprint might not yield some big shiny thing, but we're getting quite a bit of pushback from companies on that. Like, no, I just want you to, either one, I want you to already know all the answers, which shows that they don't know what they're talking about, or two, I just want you to execute on the plays. And I really think we are in one of the coolest times to be in this space. And it's not going to get handed to you on a silver platter. You have to get into these tools and start using them. You have to start to have an opinion on, is Clay as good as everybody says it is? You have to have an opinion on that. Otherwise, you're just going to start spending a bunch of. So we're advocating for this. We're pushing for this. Obviously, there's OpEx impacts to that, right? But from an investor perspective, I'd love to hear if that type of behavior at a company would be tolerated or not, because we're getting a lot of pushback on it.
That's interesting that you're getting pushback on it. I think it would probably likely company stage, life cycle specific, and also role specific. At what level are you asking people, and how much guidance or context are you giving? But in general, whether I have my investor or operator hat on, like building a culture of experimentation is super important, and to always have a growth mindset, and to keep learning and to keep growing and pushing. And so today, I think that is true for pretty much every single role across every company. And so learn to use AI or be left behind. I think I just saw an example. I think this was just literally in the last couple of days, definitely in the last week. Brian Armstrong at Coinbase had made a mandate that everybody needs to use AI tools, and they got them the proper enablement, they got them the tools, and for people that didn't log in or didn't try, like he let all the engineers go. Like, I mean, maybe it feels heavy-handed, but he made an example. Like, this is not optional. This is the way of the future, and we are going the way of the future. We are not, their company is not going to be left behind. And so if you're not willing to get on the train, then like you're getting kicked off ASAP, because you're going to be pulling the rest of the folks down. And so, but at the end of the day too, like behavior change is hard. And what's the adage around like lead a horse to water, teach a man to fish, something along those lines. Like I think giving people the time to teach themselves how to fish, and giving them the right context and the right tool, like that makes a ton of sense. You need to transform your whole company. Like this is the biggest thing that we've seen since the internet, and people also said like potentially since the semiconductor. And so, and it's such a cool and awesome opportunity and time to be in tech and to get to do what we're doing. And if you're just kind of putting your nose up to that, like that's a problem. But then also from the investor hat, I think it's great to be advocating that your companies are doing that. And whether that it looks like Google's old 20% time, or it's a dedicated hour or two, or it's like group learning where you look at it and you get everybody together and you show off like science projects type deal, like however you implement that I'm okay with. Like do it the most efficient, effectively way for your organization. Yes, maybe there's some impact to the team and how fast, but it's like what's the Marine line as well? Smooth is slow and slow is fast. I think it comes into play here as well. And so I would be a huge advocate to get your team trained up and using the AI tools. The method and how you do that, I'm more indifferent about, but I think it's important and an imperative.
I'm gonna go back and we're gonna crop that part of the video. I'm gonna send it to all of our, some of our clients that are pushing back on this. That's great. We never leave enough time for people to ask questions at the end of these. I think we've only done that well once. So I'm going to ask one more question and then I'm going to open it up because we just never leave enough time. You know, a lot of people are here today, and a lot of people that will watch this are joining specifically, you know, because they might not have direct access to a member of their board or an investor at their company, you know, whether they're in RevOps or they're in marketing or they're leading product or whatever it is. There's a lot of change happening right now, changing in expectations, changing in goals, but also changes in the way that the investors and the leadership teams are evaluating the health and success and viability and value of their companies. You know, Risa and I talk about this with our team all the time. You will have spent half your career in SaaS and half your career in this AI world. We are adopting, we're doing it, we're going to stumble along the way, but this is happening. It also changes metrics that we need to look at. I mean, such small, well, not small, but such potentially seemingly insignificant things like, well, how do you develop a sales commission plan? Well, I don't know. Like how are these AI tools pricing? Like we're seeing a lot of usage based. So it's just how are you looking? So the question is, what advice do you have for the SaaS operators that are working on evolving into this sort of AI landscape, for how you are evaluating the health and success of these companies?
Yeah, it's a great question, and a lot is changing. The bar of success is going up significantly. The benchmarks are changing, and I think everybody needs to be prepared for that. And if you're feeling that on your team, then your management team may be feeling that from the board and the board, like all the way around. The pressure to grow is back on. I won't call us being fully back in the ZERP growth at all costs era, but the bar certainly has gone up. And that being said, for more traditional SaaS businesses and even AI businesses as well, we'll see maybe outside the true hyperscalers and hyper growers. And I think Ben Bessemer recently came out with their State of AI report, which is the first time it's not called the State of Cloud report. And however many years that they've been doing it, they call those companies supernovas that are going like 0 to 100+ million ARR in under 2 years. And maybe their gross margins are all backwards, upside down, and that's a different kind of sort of company. But for your more traditional SaaS companies and even AI native companies, like the rule of 40 still plays once you get to a certain scale. Maybe it's not so important at the stage of companies that we're investing in at the pre-seed and seed, but if you do have a meaningful company and real ARR and real revenue, and then the rule of 40 is important, but it's now shifted to, I don't want to quote who put this together because I may quote it wrong, but the rule of X that is placing a premium on growth again. And there's a 2X premium on growth over EBITDA margins. And so in the old rule of 40, you used to look at 50% growth rate, 10% EBITDA margin, you're a 60 on the rule of 40. Now you're placing a 2X premium on the growth rate, and we're seeing this from the multiples of the public companies, and those public companies multiples trickle down into the private markets as well. And so I know that's a long-winded way of answering your question.
That's a great answer.
Yeah, the benchmarks are changing, the bars are going up, and be prepared for that and understand why.
Yeah, man, super helpful. The rule of X. Love that. Love that, man. Love it. Okay, and the first time ever, I'm gonna try to leave enough time here. We got a few minutes left for folks to jump off and ask you questions. Reese, thank you for joining. Hello. If you have questions, obviously join. You know Nick very well. Otherwise, I'm gonna start calling on a bunch of people here. Kevin Murphy, do you have any questions? Tia, Michael, anybody here? This is a unique opportunity to get to chat with you, Nick. I know you're incredibly humble, which is always annoying to me, but you've got both perspectives, so I think it's really helpful. Kevin, hello. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you. You know, you brought up wine, very important, because you know, I think AI, enterprise, great. You got the manpower, you got the money. Customers, they're going to use it because it's already geared towards them, because they're not doing anything. They're just looking up to buy some wine. Yep. How does a smaller business scale to this? You know, let's say we're talking a couple $1 million, you know, let's say $25 million company. You know, we're manufacturing, you know, we have e-com site and we have our wholesale division. Very different beast right there. We have our data. You know, while we were doing this, I literally looked at one of our top clients, put in all their close dates, put it into Copilot, give me the average days, came back 16.7 in about 7 seconds. So right there is a perfect example of how you beat Excel already right there. So how, and I say wine, Alex, I know you're in that world a bit, your family, I see your LinkedIn. How are they using that?
Good question. Okay, I'll go.
It can be general. I don't need to know tools. I'm just saying, how are they?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Ramp up, or is it still pretty much manual, a lot of it?
A great question. Nick, I'd also love to hear your answer, but since it was also directed to me, I'll go. So it's two things that we're seeing. One is it is on the employee level. Your example that you just gave right there, like so Domestique, we're a small company. We don't have a million AI tools out there. We've got, the sort of enterprise ChatGPT. So when I'm analyzing certain data, I can do the exact same thing. Copy in a ton of data that's a mess. Hey, summarize this for me. Okay, yep, got it. Boom. That's a quick, even just that at our stage of company is appropriate because we're not going to go buy a bunch of technology. So I think the first thing is if you're really small, it's on the person level and just start using it for small things. That analysis might have taken me half an hour to go export it all into the different worksheets, get it all into the right pivot tables, get it all organized, and then have an opinion on it. That might take half an hour. Now, to your point exactly, 60 seconds, boom. That's one example. The other example, not to go back to a point we already made, but our bet is that at some point pretty soon here, maybe not 6 months, but maybe 12 months, 18 months, there will, well, that's also true. Reese, you're the finance guy. That being said, I just put together a killer analysis the other day, but whatever, that's fine. The other thing is in the next 12 to 18 months, there will be tools that are actually good enough that we can take advantage of that don't cost an arm and a leg for a company of our size. So what we're doing is we're betting that if we can get the data infrastructure, the data right now, in 9 months, 12 months, 18 months, we're going to be able to take advantage of a tool that's appropriate for our size. Because I agree with you, and I've actually made your exact point, Kevin, which is the enterprise companies are going to be the first ones that take advantage of all this because they have the money, they have the infrastructure, they have the data. So what can you do to get ready? Get the data in a point where you trust it, because agentic AI it's coming. Thank you. It's coming. It's it's happening, but it's whether or not you push go on whatever the agent is going to be dependent on your risk tolerance and your trust in your data. If you trust your data, boom, do it. I would be very nervous to launch a customer agent at my customer database if I can't tell you exactly how many customers we have, as an example. So it's it's not a sexy answer, but that's my take.
Yeah, I'll hop in if you don't mind as well.
Please, no, please.
Our bet, this is vertical AI, baby. That's vertical SaaS and vertical AI is coming for the SMB, whether that's producers, food manufacturers. I would look at the tools that are out there that are specific for SMBs to help automate a lot of the back office practices. But to your point around, you don't want to go buy 50 tools. You don't want to spend an arm and a leg on an enterprise solution. Yes. This is why the all-in-one value prop plays so well in SMB, in tools in general. And so it's really our core thesis is that these SMBs should be using these tools, and we love to fund the up and coming AI native provider in these different specific verticals that are helping these small business owners automate and get the leverage that they want out of AI. Now, does that exist in every industry, in every category today? No, but are those the companies that we're looking to fund and where we believe the future is going over the next 3, 5, 10 years? For sure. And then a last point I'll make on it, Alex, you mentioned it may be happening at the individual level as well. And it absolutely is. Good friends over at Tidemark, which is a growth equity firm that puts out amazing content around vertical SaaS and vertical AI. I highly recommend checking out their vertical SaaS knowledge project. But Dave Yuan, the founder over there, recently wrote a post on how we're transitioning from system of action or system of records to system of actions, and how important the quote unquote hero user is. Because at the end of the day, a lot of these AI tools are not being bought traditionally top down and being implemented. They're being implemented time to first value in 5 minutes. It's like taking the PLG motion to a whole new level and making the importance of the hero user even that much more important, which has ramifications for us in go-to-market as well.
Love that. Totally agree. One other quick point, because Kevin, it's a really good question, and most of our customers are sort of in that 25-ish to $100 million range. We've done, we literally, Reese just got done wrapping up an engagement with a large enterprise customer, and it was a data dictionary project. Like, they are this massive company. They don't have a standardized definition on ARR or how many customers they have or and the amount of calories and money it took to get aligned on those things was excruciating. Reese is like still recovering from it. So for you, if you're at a smaller company, that time to alignment on a definition should be so much quicker. So I'd argue that that's actually a benefit. Now it might take an extra 6 months to actually adopt a tool, but I feel like right now we're in a bit of a sweet spot to invest in those things. So anyways, it's a really good question, Kevin, and I appreciate it. It's good to see you on here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks, man. Andrew, it's good to see you again. Hello.
Hey, Alex, good to see you too. What's up, Reese?
I guess I'll put my hand down if I can figure out how to do that on here. Anyways, quick question. Just piggybacking on the conversation you guys were just having. I'm in a number of small and growth stage businesses, and I'm seeing this chasm firsthand where, you have all the potential of the actual technology that is being created day in, day out. It's really living in enterprise right now, getting it into actual small, medium-sized businesses. It's actually just not happening in what I'm seeing right now, existing businesses that aren't native. And to your point, Nick, your thesis is like, hey, this is going to happen, because I believe it will too. And Alex, you're piggybacking on that. And so I kind of wanted to take a step back or step in really around, okay, what, Nick, from your perspective, and Alex as well, I guess, knowing these are coming, but it's not there yet, knowing that small businesses are more nimble at the same time, and probably can get aligned on some of these key infrastructure decisions, if you will. Where do you think they should start? And are there any products in particular right now that you actually recommend, to kind of get them on their way? Hopefully that made sense as a question.
Totally made sense.
Yeah. I don't know that I fancy myself a small business AI consultant, so take it with a grain of salt here. But it's almost like they need to operate in a similar way as the enterprise. And now, for the first time, they're potentially going to have the ability to do that. And so if you can advise these clients, the same thing we're telling enterprise clients or AI native growth companies, to get the foundations right, to understand your data, to then when the tools are coming, you're able to get the leverage and will be able to implement them. But it's probably an education process as much as anything. And as far as specific tools, I don't have any off the top of my head that we're promoting these days, outside of, if you are in a certain vertical, I would be Googling and chat GPTing and looking around of like, what's the AI native for small business manufacturers, or what's the ERP for pool cleaners, or like what are the tools that are out there? And what we are seeing from an investment perspective, though, is that a lot of these niche industries that hadn't adopted AI tools in a previous era now are adopting because they are able to get that time to first value so quickly that the adoption curve in a lot of these long tail vertical SaaS markets, some of them just never adopted. I won't call this a long tail small one, but I'll use legal, for example. Traditionally a very laggard, very risk averse industry as a whole. However, with the productivity gains and the use cases that you see across the legal profession, they're actually one of the fastest adopting users of AI. So I know I didn't answer your question perfectly there, but hopefully some good nuggets.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks, Nick. I'm thinking like, is it you really start with data? It seems like, right? And I'm curious, like, yeah. Anyways, Alex, any thoughts?
Yeah, I do. So a slightly more granular answer, just because I'm getting kicked in the teeth by this every single day, and I was trying to find a specific piece that we put out on this earlier. So the three main areas that we are seeing AI adoption in the earlier stage companies. Again, I go back to use cases, and it's enrichment, conversational intelligence, and automation. Those are the three layers that we're seeing adoption because it's easy to adopt it. It's not you're not changing some prospect's flow, your customer journey. You're just optimizing the way that you work, the data that you're getting. There are a ton of tools. A tool that our team really likes, a couple of them on the automation side. There's N8N, Make. Those are folks really like those. The conversational intelligence seems to be kind of specific to your sales methodology, but those are easiest, obvious ones, right? But like, if you get your enrichment right, your CRM marketing automation platform is not perfect, but it's pretty good. You get your enrichment much more dialed, something like a Clay, a Scale Stack. And then you've got your conversational intelligence, like we were talking about earlier. Nick had a good example of extracting insights, getting it into your CRM, getting into Slack, and then your automation layer, Make, N8N, whatever, automating different actions and if-thens and processes. Like, that's a super powerful little stack for a small company that's not, it's not going to break the bank. It's not insane, but it's super actionable.
Cool. Thanks, Alex.
Yeah,
Thanks, Nick.
Really good question. Yeah, really good question. I love that we actually left time for questions because we never do that and we like go 20 minutes over. Thank you so much for your time. This was awesome. Thank you everybody for joining. We tend to get a lot of people that watch these after. So to everybody that's still watching, I appreciate it. Nick, yeah, lots of respect. Really love the way you think. Love the way that you're challenging us to, always be AI curious and adopting this, and really excited to hear, what you and the fund do, over the next few years. I think it's an exciting space to watch. And if anybody has any follow-up questions that they want to dive into, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to put you in touch with Nick. We can jump on a working session, but that's it. We ended on time, which might be a first in Domestique history. Thank you, everybody. This is great.
And thank you, Alex. The feeling's very mutual. Thank you, everybody, for coming here today. Hopefully there's some good nuggets in there, and we'll see you all soon. Cheers.
Awesome.
See ya.
Awesome. Boom.